is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil Village gameplay. And it's kind of funny because even though this game's been out for a few years, I've really yet to talk about Resident Evil Village as a whole and talk about my honest feelings about it. Other than the few Chris videos and talking about the Hound Wolf Squad and my dislike of what they probably should have been instead of what they actually are. But I actually recently just started replaying the game and actually doing some of the DLC, which I never did, as well as having the third-person perspective. So I was getting reacquainted with the game because I really haven't played it since I initially beat it and tried to get all the trophies and platinum it. But the funny point about Village is, while I will say it's an enjoyable game, it's not a bad game in any way, it definitely would be on the bottom tier of my liked Resident Evil title in terms of the major ones. And if you're curious, the ones I consider the major Resident Evil titles would be of the follows: Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, 4, Revelations 1, 5, Revelations 2, 6, 7, 8. So of those, it would be on the bottom part of it. My least liked Resident Evil, if you are curious, would be between this, Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Code Veronica. With Resident Evil 0, I just feel like at a time, I give them credit for trying to experiment with the whole dual protagonist and inventory thing they tried to get there done. It just didn't work out, but I do believe if they were given another opportunity, they can make it really work. So no problem with them trying. It just, that always annoyed me a lot in the game. With Code Veronica, I just feel like the story could be done so much better. And who knows, both those games supposedly are getting remakes, so who knows, maybe we can possibly see that. But with Resident Evil Village, it was different for me because I couldn't outright tell you what didn't resonate with me. Like, what was it that just wasn't sticking with me? Because between that and 7, I'll take 7 any day of the week. I love 7, but Village, it just didn't get the amount of love from me to it. So I kept thinking, but as I was playing through the game, I was trying to figure out what was it that made me like it, but not love it. And as I played through the game, I think it really started to dawn on me why I wasn't a big fan of Village. As I said, still an enjoyable game. Definitely recommend it. A lot of replayability. A lot of things to do. I enjoyed it for what it was. But the thing that really got me to not really like it as much as I wanted to, or love it instead of just simply liking it, was this whole scene right here that played in front of me, because it finally dawned on me what it was that wasn't clicking. And that was the main antagonist that you fight through the game, the Four Lords and Mother Miranda. And the thing about it was that, when I initially played it, they were just, means to ends. Defeat them and get to the final villain and defeat them and, enough said. But as I was watching this cutscene, it made me dawn on me what it was that I really wanted and what this game severely lacked. And it came down to these guys. And it made me think of, ironically enough, another group, which I'll mention on later in this video. But the problem with this game is that the Four Lords, presiding over the area and then working underneath the head honcho, the Mother Miranda, it's a cool concept. But my problem with a lot of these Resident Evil games is there's a lot of cool concepts. They just don't execute them properly. And the problem here is these Four Lords should have been so much more than what they are. They could have had deep ramifications, not just throughout this game, but throughout, future Resident Evil games as well. The problem is, at the end of the day, with all the potential they have, they're just mere monsters that you fight and defeat and move on. As soon as they're defeated, that's the end of them, and nothing more, nothing less. And to me, that's just not satisfying, because I could see so many things they could have done with them. I mean, you had members that were eager to go along with Mother Miranda's plans. You had members that were questioning it. You had members that they wanted to get out as soon as possible. You had so many fights within the group, especially one here with Heisenburg and Lady D, and I'm just thinking, man, they could have done so much more. But remember I just said earlier ago that they remind me of another group that I feel like, maybe it's because I'm such a big fan of that game, it kind of gives me a bad taste for this game, because I see how effective that group was used and compared to this one in terms of the units working under a main unit, and then you have to fight that whole unit throughout the game. Yeah, if you know me, you probably know where I'm going with this, but I'm, of course, speaking of my second favorite video game of all time, only behind the original Resident Evil 4, and that is, of course, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which ironically enough is getting a remake as well. But I look at the Four Lords and Mother Miranda as like a failed version of the boss and her Cobra unit. And the funny part is that the Four Lords have more screen time than the boss's Cobra units, not including the boss herself. But I feel like the unit itself is used so much more effectively, having each member be soldiers underneath the boss and having an emotion they carry in battle and having each boss fight. And to be fair, let's just be honest, Metal Gear Solid boss fights are a lot more iconic and memorable than Resident Evil ever would be. Boss fights have never been Resident Evil's strong point, but still, I just feel like I remember those encounters so much more than the Lords of Resident Evil. Not because they're not good enough to be memorable, it's like they don't do anything. And of course, obviously, there's no comparison between Mother Miranda and the boss. Mother Miranda might be a lot of things. She ain't no damn boss. That's for damn sure. But in more ways than one. But the problem here is, like, with the Lords and Mother Miranda, I see potential of them being iconic. But outside, like, the initial sight of them, they do anything but be iconic. And, of course, me being a diehard MGS3 fan, it's just like, that's how I look at them. I look at them like a failed Cobra unit. And Mother Miranda just, I don't know, wannabe boss. But, like, I know there's no, comparison with them. They're two completely different things. But I'm sorry, it's my Metal Gear Solid mind speaking. But that's not because I can't see it, as I said before. I want to give you things that I would have personally done that would have made the Lords a lot more meaningful than what they were. Now, I have been lying a little bit because I said the Lords are all bad, but there's one that I would not change, and that's Benio. And honestly, she's the one that I think is perfect. She's the one that I don't have any problems with. I like everything they did about her. I like the set-off, the payoff, the whole vulnerability, the whole psychology behind it, just how it's there to torture you mentally, and then the whole, obviously, iconic presence of the you-know-what down here, if you played it. But honestly, to me, this was the most unique of all the encounters with the Lords. It was the best thing of all the Lords because it's the one that stands out the most. It gives her an identity. And ironically, it's the one Lord you technically really don't fight at all. As I said, it's more just how it tortures Ethan in terms of his wife Mia and his daughter Rose and how they're basically trying to mess with him. And I like that whole concept a lot. And it's really very creepy and terrifying and well done. As I said, you technically don't fight her, but you don't need to because it's the fact that what it's trying to do that really stands out. So this is the one Lord I have no problems with. They're perfectly fine. In my opinion, they're the most effective and best. And ironically enough, they're the quickest one to get through, so it's sad too. So unfortunately, I couldn't stay here longer than I wanted to. But yes, Benio is the best in my opinion. But now let's get to the other Lords and what I think they should have done. I think I speak for a lot of people. It's rare if you see someone rank the Lords and you see Moreau anywhere but the bottom because he is definitely the least talked about and he is easily the worst of the Lords. I mean, honestly, he's so bad, I can honestly make an argument. Just take him out of the game and all his time and assets used to make the game, just add him to the other three Lords because he offers literally nothing. He's a joke among the Lords. They don't really do much for him, and his only thing going about it, he's just desperate to please Mother Miranda no matter what. And I mean, even amongst the Lords, he's kind of looked down upon. So He offers nothing to me, nothing that really I can use. He's nothing more than just a mere monster that you fight. The only thing I'll say that's unique and different about him, and has nothing to do with him, is just the whole level design of you trying to turn on the power so you can empty the water to eventually fight him in the first place, that whole segment. But once again, it's really nothing to do with him. Honestly, I got nothing for you. I don't know what you would do with him. I mean, maybe just make him an early monster fight. He should have been the first Lord you defeated, not the third Lord. And that's really the only thing I'd really change about him, because he's just not very memorable in a lot of ways, unfortunately for me. Of all the Lords, this one was definitely the most popular, well before the game ever, was released, well before it even was a thing. As soon as they saw Lady D, I mean, the whole internet lost their mind. But the problem is that when you play the game, I just look at Lady D as just like another creature. Yeah, I mean, she stands out, nothing more. But I do like her whole thing with the daughters and the castle. And I like the fact that she's not inherently behind the whole Mother Miranda's plans and wondering why she seems forsaken for Mother Miranda trying to get her daughter, and why Lady isn't looked down upon more fondly because of Mother Miranda's obsession with her daughter. I get all that. The problem is, I just feel like there was so much more she could have done, and it goes back to what I said earlier about dissension between the ranks. Obviously, Lady D does not have the biggest opinion of Heisenburg, and I could have seen them have a real rivalry with each other and them trying to one-up the other, and they could have done so much more. As I said before, Lady D shouldn't have been the first Lord you fought and defeated, because once she's done, that's it. You know, game over. You never see her again. I feel like they could have done so much more with her, and seeing both her and Heisenburg, while trying to do their own thing, but also being completely against each other, and then having you in the middle to throw a wrench. Hell, they could have done something which they did in Resident Evil 7, where you have a choice. Maybe you choose, not necessarily that you're going along with either of their plans, but maybe you have to choose between Heisenburg and Lady D. Just some type of turmoil they could have done with, because obviously Lady D and Heisenburg are the two most dangerous and probably more intelligent beings of the Lords, and the ones that have the most potential. And seeing you kind of caught between the middle of them two, on top of having to fight Mother Miranda, there was so much potential there. But unfortunately, as you probably guessed it, they just completely turned her to just another boss fight. That's all she is. Just survive the area, defeat her, and that's the end. And that's the problem, is I could see these characters used so much more down the line and stuff, and done so much more. Like maybe you had like a segment where, like, you know, Heisenberg contacts you, hey, you know, you side with me, I help you out, and maybe I'll give you some, like, information how to take her out. Maybe I'll give you information like how to take out the daughters, or something like that. Or maybe, you know, you could work with them and stuff to help go against Heisenburg. It's just like, it's just too bare basic. Just go up to the Lord and fight them. There's nothing unique about them that makes you think, oh, I could see so much more potential with them. I'm not saying that Ethan befriends either one of them, but maybe, you know, fake it till you make it. But you could definitely see so much more drama and tension going on. But of course, once you beat them, that's the end of the story. But once again, Lady D is not even personally my favorite Lord, because I have a lot of gripe for the next one. Heisenburg, as you probably guessed, is my favorite Lord, and what they did with him is even more criminal, because once again, unlike Lady D, I can see Heisenburg being the one to come out on top of all the Lords, but even more than that, I could see him being such a factor in future Resident Evil games, because of the Lords, he was the one that just wanted to break free completely. He knew Mother Miranda didn't care about them. He knew that she only cared about the daughter, and he wanted to use the daughter against her, even willing to work with Ethan. And obviously has a lot more intelligence, and then he has his whole metal factory, which I thought was always cool, unique, all the enemies. Even though I didn't like going through the metal factory, as a lot of people don't like that area. But my point is that Heisenburg wasn't like the others. And what I think was a failure is the fact that they could have used it for future Resident Evil games. But unfortunately, Resident Evil has this problem where you introduce a unique, cool character that could be a threat for future Resident Evils, and then they just decide to kill them off. Like, goodbye. So what's the point of having all this build-up payoff if they're just going to be dead in one game? And I don't get that. Not to mention, Heisenberg apparently knows about Chris Redfield's boulder punching ability, so that's got to count for something. But, like, seriously, why do they keep killing off their villains when they keep building them up? He was definitely someone that could have a huge presence. I mean, for goodness sakes, he created a whole metal army. He's definitely, I think, the most intelligent of the bunch. He could do so many things and be such a thorn in the side, and could be that X factor you see, or maybe he works for other like companies and groups that we have yet to see for a while, like the Connections or something like that. But they're just like, nah, you know what? We'll make him look cool, give him that little, you know, Van Helsing cool ability with kind of Magneto-esque powers. But, you know, we're just going to get him killed easily in a weird and wild boss fight. We obviously don't see any potential with him. So, no, let's just kill him off. We'll just introduce him in one game and kill him off. And that's, unfortunately, a trend I see with a lot of these Resident Evil games, is they'll introduce a cool concept, and then they're like, oh, we'll kill it off in one game. But as much as I do like Heisenburg, I'm even more baffled and confused about the next person on the list, and that's the person who leads the Lords themselves. That is Mother Miranda herself. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Mother Miranda, she still was the main adversary of this game, and the person that had a lot of cool, unique abilities, like the ability to beat anybody, which is dangerous, and considering the fact that you have the ability to be anyone, you could even mimic being a corpse. I mean, think about it, the possibilities of that right there. I mean, you could use so many storylines in future Resident Evil games. Like, we have this whole BSAA thing going rogue, and I just find it hard to believe that the BSAA just randomly decided to go rogue. I would figure someone like this would play a huge role in that, right? Nah, you'd be thinking way too hard, unfortunately. Because, once again, you could probably guess they did the same thing with Heisenburg. It was like, you know, hey, we're going to introduce this character that has a lot of potential, has unique, cool powers, that could possibly do a lot of things to manipulate people. But now we're just going to kill them off as usual. But what makes so little sense to me, and I'm going to ask you guys, this is my number one question for you guys right here. If you were going to kill this character off in only one game, even with all her powers and abilities and potential you could do, please explain this one thing to me right now. Why in the name of all that makes any sense in this world would you have a huge lore implication of having this character have a direct connection of inspiring, you know, the guy who made Umbrella what it is in the first place, Spencer, and basically saying that Spencer's whole motivation of doing Umbrella was Mother Miranda itself. That is a big deal. That's huge. So you think doing something like that for this, that you must have a lot of big plans for them, right? So then why would you kill them off after one game? I remember people were kind of mad about this with, you know, Spencer's whole motivation of Umbrella being Mother Miranda and then finding his whole progenitor virus in Africa. But then it's like, you know, people get mad about that, but then you killed off the character in one game. So what was the point of doing it in the first place? Why? Now, unless you want to tell me that she re-faked her death and wants everyone to think she's dead for the, second time or whatever, it's so mind-boggling. Like, it's like they have an interesting concept, an idea that seems cool at first, but then it's like they don't know what to do with it. It's like they'll start a game on fire in the first quarter, maybe continue that fire in the second, but when it comes to the second half, especially in the third and fourth quarter, it's like they lost all gas in the tank. They have completely just run out. They're on empty and fumes, and it's just so mind-boggling. But hopefully I was able to make that clear to you. Once again, I don't have a problem with the Lords and Mother Miranda and the concept of it. I just have a problem with the execution of it, because a lot of them, other than Benio herself, it's like they're just generic enemies that you fight and defeat, and that's it. There's just like, I feel like they could be so much more, especially, you know, Lady D having a rivalry with Heisenburg, trying to see who's better for Mother Miranda. Heisenburg actually being the one to get out of it and being a threat in the future, and then Mother Miranda also being a threat in the future, having implications of her, you know, maybe possibly being involved with the BSA, because that would make the most sense. But no, you're just going to have these characters just show up, have their one initial boss fight, and the end. That's it. So, cool characters, cool concept. They go out basically like bitches. That's it. And once again, we're still looking for that iconic re-returning enemy ever since Wesker's dead. So, just another phase in what Resident Evil has done since 2009, which is sad, but I guess you could also argue, even if they didn't die, would they return them for the next game? Because Resident Evil also has a problem in terms of fixing plot holes of characters that we expect to see that haven't seen in a while that could have huge implications on the plot, kind of like, you know, Alex Wesker or Jessica or whoever, but you get the point. But hopefully I was able to make that clear. As I said, I do like Resident Evil Village. I don't hate it, don't get me wrong. I just don't love it. But hopefully I was able to get the reason what kind of held me back from loving it. I do think it's a solid game. And there's a few other things I might have problems with too, but that's probably the main one. But nonetheless, I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. What's your opinion on Resident Evil Village as a whole, period? And also, how do you feel about the Four Lords of Mother Miranda? Do you like them, or are you like me? You think they could be used so much better for future games or implications within the main game? But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.